So you walk into the grocery store to grab the basics. Eggs, milk, bread, some chicken. Same stuff you've been buying for years. You get to the checkout, the cashier scans everything, and the total pops up, $87. You stand there for a second thinking you heard wrong. You look at your cart. It's half empty. You literally bought like 8 things, and somehow it's $87. You pay, you walk out to your car, and you sit there for a minute just confused. Because you make more money than you did 5 years ago. Your salary went up. You got promotions. You should feel like you're getting ahead. But instead, you feel broke. Broker than ever, actually. And then you start thinking about everything else. Your rent went up. Your car insurance went up. Your phone bill went up. That sandwich you used to get for $8 is now $13. A movie ticket is $18. A beer at a bar is $9. Everything is expensive, and nobody seems to be able to explain why in a way that actually makes sense. Until now. Hi there. My name is Prosper, and I spend way too much time thinking about why your paycheck feels like monopoly money in 2025. If you're someone who feels like you're working harder than ever but somehow can't afford the same lifestyle you had 5 years ago, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Look, back in medieval times, there was this thing called coin clipping. Basically, when people had gold or silver coins, they would literally shave off tiny pieces from the edges, collect those shavings, and melt them down into new coins. But they'd still spend the clipped coins at full value. So you'd go to the market with 10 coins, but those coins actually only had 9 coins worth of metal in them. The merchant would accept them because he didn't have a scale right there, but he knew that the coins were worth less than they used to be. So what did he do? He raised his prices. This is exactly what's happening today. Except instead of coin clipping, it's called monetary expansion. And instead of shaving off pieces of your coins, they're just printing trillions of new dollars and pretending it doesn't affect anything. Spoiler alert, it affects everything. Here's what most people don't realize. The reason everything is expensive isn't because stuff costs more to make. It's because your money is worth less. Let me show you the actual numbers, and I want you to pay attention, because this is going to blow your mind. In 2020, the US money supply, that's M2, which includes cash, checking accounts, and savings, was about $15.5 trillion. By early 2022, it was $22 trillion. They created $6.5 trillion in 2 years. That's a 42% increase in the money supply in 24 months. Now, basic economics tells you that if you increase the supply of something by 42% and demand stays relatively the same, the value of that thing drops. That's not a theory. That's not political. That's just math. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the official inflation rate from 2020 to 2024 was about 20%. But here's where it gets really interesting. That's the average. For specific things, it's way worse. Eggs are up 60% since 2020. Ground beef is up 38%. Rent is up 30% in major cities. Car insurance is up 54%. Home insurance in some states, up 100% or more. But your salary? According to the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, real wages, that's wages adjusted for inflation, are basically flat. For most Americans, wages went up about 18% while prices went up 20 to 30% on average. And way more for essentials. You're not imagining it. You're actually getting poorer. Let me give you a concrete example that'll make this crystal clear. In 2019, You could do a full grocery shop for a family of 4 for about $150 a week. That's $600 a month, $7,200 a year. In 2025, that same grocery shop costs about $215 a week. That's $860 a month, $10,320 a year. That's an extra $3,120 per year, just on groceries. But here's the thing. You're not buying better food. You're not buying more food. You're buying the exact same food. You're just paying 43% more for it. Now let's say your salary was $60,000 in 2019. If it kept pace with inflation, you should be making $78,000 in 2025. But most people got raises that put them at maybe $66,000 to $68,000. So you're making 13% more, but spending 43% more on groceries alone. And that's just one category. This is where it gets really interesting. The government says inflation is under control at 3.1% annually. But they're measuring a basket of goods that doesn't reflect what you actually buy. They weight things like electronics, which get cheaper, heavily, and weight things like food, rent, and insurance, which are exploding, less. It's not a conspiracy. It's just methodology that doesn't reflect real life. Now you might be thinking, okay, Prosper, but why did they print all that money in the first place? Great question. And the answer is going to make you angry. During COVID, the government decided the best way to help the economy was to send everyone checks and dramatically expand unemployment benefits. Sounds nice, right? Free money. Except it wasn't free. They didn't have that money sitting around. They created it. The Federal Reserve literally just added zeros to accounts digitally and called it stimulus. According to the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, the total COVID-related spending was about $5 trillion. That's more than the entire US spent in World War II, adjusted for inflation. And here's the psychological trick. When you got that $1,200 stimulus check, it felt like free money. It felt like the government was helping you. But what actually happened was they took value from all your future dollars and gave you a tiny piece of it back in the present. It's like if a medieval lord took 10 pounds of grain from your storehouse, gave you back 2 pounds, and expected you to be grateful. Except you don't notice the missing 10 pounds until later, when you're trying to feed your family and realize your stores are empty. Let's talk about housing, because this is where people are getting absolutely destroyed. In 2019, the median rent in the US was about $1,650. In 2025, it's about $2,145. That's a 30% increase. But here's what makes it worse. Rents don't just go up once. They go up every single year. It's compounding poverty. Let's say you were paying $1,200 a month in 2019 for a decent one-bedroom in a mid-tier city. Here's what happened. 2020. Rent goes to $1,250 plus 4%. 2021. Rent goes to $1,375 plus 10%. 2022. Rent goes to $1,575 plus 15%. 2023. Rent goes to $1,675 plus 6%. 2024. Rent goes to $1,775 plus 6%. 2025. Rent goes to $1,850 plus 4%. That's an extra $650 per month, or $7,800 per year, just on rent, for the exact same apartment. Meanwhile, according to Zillow, the average home price went from $257,000 in January 2020 to $361,000 in 2025. That's a 40% increase. But mortgage rates went from 3.7% to 7.2%. So the house costs 40% more, and the monthly payment costs about 90% more due to higher rates. A $257,000 house at 3.7% for 30 years is a $1,183 payment. A $361,000 house at 7.2% is a $2,449 payment. You need to make literally twice as much money to afford the same house. Here's an analogy that explains what's really happening. In medieval times, when the king needed money, he had two options. He could raise taxes, which was unpopular and might cause a rebellion, or he could debase the currency by mixing cheap metals into gold and silver coins. Debasement was sneaky. It was a hidden tax. People didn't riot because they didn't immediately understand what was happening. They just noticed over time that their coins bought less at the market. Inflation is modern currency debasement. It's a hidden tax that transfers wealth from regular people to the government and to people who own assets. Here's how. When the government creates $6.5 trillion, that money doesn't go to you. Most of it goes to banks, large corporations, and asset owners. They get to spend the new money first before prices go up. By the time that money trickles down to you through wages, prices have already risen. It's called the Cantillon effect, named after an 18th century economist who figured this out. The people closest to money creation benefit. The people furthest from it get screwed. You're at the bottom of that chain. You're the medieval peasant watching prices rise and wondering why your copper coins don't buy what they used to. Let me show you another category that's destroying people. Insurance. According to Bankrate, the average car insurance premium went from $1,771 per year in 2023 to $2,329 per year in 2024. That's a 31.5% increase in 1 year. Home insurance. In Florida, the average went from $2,500 to $6,000. In Texas, from $2,200 to $3,800. In California, some carriers just left the state entirely. Health insurance premiums for employer-sponsored coverage went from $7,470 in 2020 to $8,435 in 2023, according to the Kaiser Family Foundation. And that's just the premium. Deductibles and out-of-pocket costs went up even more. Add it all up. Car insurance up $560 per year. Home insurance up $1,500 per year on average. Health insurance up $1,000 per year. That's $3,060 per year in extra insurance costs alone, for the same coverage you had before. You're not buying more protection. You're not getting better service. You're just paying more for the same thing, because everything denominated in dollars costs more dollars now. This is where it gets really dark. In medieval times, serfs were bound to the land. They couldn't leave. They had to work for the Lord, and most of what they produced went to him. They kept just enough to survive and keep working. Sound familiar? Most Americans today are in a similar position. You work your job, and most of your money goes to rent, insurance, food, gas, utilities. You keep just enough to survive and keep working. And you can't leave because you can't afford to miss a paycheck. According to a 2023 survey by payroll.org, 78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Not because they're irresponsible, because the math doesn't work anymore. Let's do the math for someone making $60,000 a year, about $50,000 after taxes. Rent, $1,850 per month equals $22,200 per year. Car payment, $525 per month equals $6,300 per year. Car insurance. $194 per month equals $2,329 per year. Gas. $200 per month equals $2,400 per year. Groceries. $860 per month equals $10,320 per year. Utilities. $200 per month equals $2,400 per year. Phone/internet. $150 per month equals $1,800 per year. Health insurance. $200 per month equals $2,400 per year. That's $50,149 in basic expenses. On a $50,000 take-home. You're literally spending more than you make on just the basics. No savings, no 401k, no emergency fund, no vacation, no entertainment, just surviving. And they wonder why birth rates are falling. You can't afford kids. You can barely afford yourself. Now you might be thinking several things. But inflation is coming down. It's only 3% now. Yeah, the rate of increase is slowing. But prices aren't going back down. That's not how this works. Inflation is the rate of change. 3% inflation on top of the 20% increase we already had means prices keep going up. Just slower. You're still getting poorer, just not as fast as you were in 2022. But unemployment is low. The economy is doing great. For who? Unemployment measures whether people have jobs, not whether those jobs pay enough to live on. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, the percentage of workers earning less than $15 per hour actually increased from 2020 to 2023. People have jobs. They're just jobs that don't pay enough. But the stock market is at all-time highs. Great. Unless you're wealthy enough to have significant investments, that doesn't help you pay for groceries. According to the Federal Reserve's survey of consumer finances, the bottom 50% of Americans own only 3% of all stocks and mutual funds. The stock market being high means rich people are getting richer. It doesn't mean you can afford eggs. All right, here's what you actually do about this. Because complaining doesn't pay the bills. Step 1. Understand you're in a war. This isn't normal times. This is a wealth transfer event. Money is being extracted from people who hold dollars and transferred to people who own assets. You need to become an asset owner. Step 2. Get out of dollar-denominated expenses. Every subscription, every monthly payment, every dollar sitting in a checking account is losing value. Your emergency fund in a savings account earning 4% is losing 3% per year. In real terms, if inflation is 7%. Step 3. Buy things that can't be inflated. Real estate, if you can afford it. Stocks in companies that can raise prices with inflation. Commodities like gold and silver. Skills that increase your earning power. Step 4. Increase your income. Aggressively. You can't save your way out of this. A 3% raise doesn't help when your rent goes up 6%. You need to job hop every 2 to 3 years. Studies show job switchers earn 10 to 20% more. Develop high-value skills. Start a side business. Negotiate aggressively. Step 5. Cut ruthlessly. I know you don't want to hear this, but that $15 per month streaming service is costing you $180 per year. That's $180 that could be invested. Over 30 years at 8% returns, that's $20,400. Every dollar you don't spend is a dollar that can grow and protect you from this inflation nightmare. Look, I need to be honest with you about something that most finance content won't say. This is not getting better. The government has $36 trillion in debt. They can't stop printing money because if they do, they can't service the debt. If they can't service the debt, the system collapses. So they're going to keep printing. They're going to keep inflating. They're going to keep telling you inflation is under control, while your grocery bill keeps climbing. This is the new normal. This is life in late-stage fiat currency. This is what happens when money is backed by nothing except government promises, and those governments are drowning in debt. Medieval serfs couldn't leave the Lord's land. You can't leave the dollar system, but what you can do is protect yourself within it by owning things that maintain value when currency collapses. Here's the lesson from medieval merchants that saved them from poverty. They never held on to coins longer than necessary. The moment they made money, they converted it into goods, land, or trade inventory. They understood that coins, especially debased coins, lost value over time. You need the same mindset. Holding cash is losing money. Every day you have dollars sitting in a checking account is a day those dollars are worth less. The merchants who survived economic collapses were the ones who held real assets. The peasants who held coins went broke. Don't be a peasant with a checking account. Be a merchant with a portfolio. Here's what you're going to do this week. Day 1. Calculate your actual inflation rate. Track what you spent on groceries, rent, insurance, and gas in 2020 versus now. Face the real number. Day 2. Open a brokerage account if you don't have one. Fidelity, Schwab, Vanguard, doesn't matter. Just open it. Day 3. Set up automatic investments. Even if it's just $50 a month. Get your money out of cash and into assets. Day 4. Update your resume and start looking at what you could earn elsewhere. Job hopping is the fastest way to increase income. Day 5. Cancel one subscription you don't use. Just one. Put that money into investments instead. Day 6. Buy one share of something. One share of an S&P 500 index fund. Just to start. Just to become an asset owner. Day 7. Teach someone else what you learned in this video. When you teach, you internalize. And we need more people to understand what's actually happening. The reason everything is expensive in 2025 isn't a mystery. It's not corporate greed. It's not supply chains. It's not Putin or oil or whatever they're blaming this week. It's monetary expansion. It's inflation. It's the hidden tax that steals your purchasing power, while politicians pretend they're helping you with stimulus checks and expanded programs. They took a dollar that used to buy a loaf of bread and turned it into a dollar that buys half a loaf. Then they told you, the problem is that bread got more expensive. The bread didn't change. Your money did. And until people understand this, really understand it, they're going to keep working harder, making more money on paper, and feeling broker than ever. You now understand it. You now see the game. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Hit that subscribe button if this finally made inflation click for you. Drop a comment telling me which expense has increased the most for you, and share this with someone who keeps asking why everything costs so much. The medieval peasants stayed poor because they didn't understand money. You don't have that excuse anymore. I'm Prosper, and I'll see you in the next one.